Oh, what's up?
Hello.
How are you?
All right, just accept everyone, I guess.
Yeah, I was just wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Um, what do you say to the people that are like trying to say that this was like a CIA operation or an Israeli operation, like trying to blame this whole like revolution or the coup on like outside influence?
Yeah, I can say like they can guess all they want, but they have no proof yet, and we don't find out these things until they're declassified. So if that's your obsession right now, like you're still ignoring a lot of the facts on the matter. Like Syrians are all really happy, we're afraid. We're afraid of what's to come. Don't get us wrong. But like focusing on that detail, whether or not it's true, because I can't prove it and I can't disprove it, because if it's happening secretly. So there's no way that I could prove it really.
Yeah.
But most of their accusations are really baseless, right? Like I don't know, they came up with Giuliani, like that's what they got right now. Just
Honestly,
putting a bunch of anti-Semitic memes around saying that he's like a Mossad agent or whatever. Like they can't prove that. His dad is a well-known figure in Syrian politics too. Like you can look it up, and he was displaced from Jolan. That's why he went with Jolani, and his family was displaced. I mean, and yeah, he was born in Riyadh and lived also in Mezze in Damascus, and um, he's been through like every stage of the Syrian conflict. He's not like a random person. And he's even been through every stage in the precursor to the Syrian conflict in Iraq.
What was he doing in these eras you're talking about?
Allahu alam, honestly, and I want transparency and accountability for that myself. I know I don't know
We
the
know
answer
what
to
he
that
was
question
doing.
fully,
It's
and
not Allahu Alam. I think we know what he was doing, when he was Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi's second man in Al-Qaeda, when they were in Iraq.
yeah, I haven't like dived too deep into that, but
Yeah, well, I can give you the rundown on his CV. He has a
okay.
pretty good resume if you want. He was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's guy. He was the one who was sent to Syria on behalf of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He
Before
was,
or after Abu Bakr was head of Daesh?
no, IS was not founded yet. So before IS, it was mainly Al-Qaeda splinters.
Yeah.
So Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi and the people he trained in Iraq. Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi was Jordanian who went to Iraq with quote-unquote the intentions of fighting the American occupation, and he ended up bombing more Shia mosques than he did the American bases, just as a background on Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi. And one of these people he happened to train, and one of these people he happened to rely on was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and Jolani. We see him getting arrested and thrown into American prisons in Iraq, and then he's let out a few years, I believe like 3 years before the Syrian Civil War starts. I believe 2008. After 2008, he is sent in 2011, 2012 to Syria by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to establish the presence of that specific ideology and that specific group in Syria. So he goes, he does a really good job. And, I think you might be familiar with him. You know how there's a very common point about how Bashar had a very, very big role in allowing the radicalism to hijack the Syrian Revolution?
Yep.
The first person you could point to is Jolani and Al-Qatari, both of whom were foreigners who went there.
Before, I mean, yeah, they're kind of foreigners, but no, they're still he's still from Syria.
Yeah, I understand he's from Syria, but you'll understand I'm saying foreigners. When I say foreigners, it means that they arrived in the country before or during the Civil War. They weren't originally in the country. Even before that, he wasn't there. He left.
And I was suspicious of him before this offensive, like before December 8th. Like I was actually suspicious of Jolani as an asset for Assad, basically.
This is what I was about to get to, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
So 2011, he goes there. Al-Nusra is formed. Al-Nusra was pretty much Al-Qaeda in Syria. Identical ideology. Then 2013, 2014, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi announces the Khilafah in Mosul, in Iraq, the Islamic State. Later on, there is a split between Al-Nusra and IS. Even though they collaborated, even though they worked together, even though they all had a very close relationship, That relationship seemed to fade away because of two things. One, the fact that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi wanted all of them to be one entity. He wanted the Islamic State in Syria to have the same power over the groups in Iraq, over the groups in whatever other area. And Jalani rejected because he did not want to pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He wanted to pledge allegiance to al-Dawahri. That's what he wanted.
Al-Tawahid?
Al-Dawahri. Al-Dawahri was the head of Al-Qaeda. So, Osama, we're not going to mention the rest of his name. He was head of Al-Qaeda. His second man, the man second in command after him, was a man called Yeah, exactly him, yeah. So the second man in command was a man called Tawahri, who at the time, when Jolani fought with Ayaz, he was the head of Al-Qaeda. Jolani, even though he was really good with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, he was better with Tawahri. Now, after that, this is al-Nusra. 2017, he rebrands into Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the reasoning he did that, and the reason he won right before that, for a period of like less than 6 months, he even distanced himself from al-Nusra, was because al-Dawahri, who was head of Al-Qaeda at the time, specifically told him, you need to change your ideology if you want to win. And one of these ways was one, making it less global, because Al-Qaeda is always associated with a certain plane attack in the US.
Yeah.
And they were already on T-list because of their participation. So he said, one, you have to rebrand into a new group. So one, you are not a target of American airstrikes and Russian airstrikes as much, and you're taken off the focus of these organizations, U.S. State Departments, the Global Terror Watch List, Interpol, all these things. And you could also capture the hearts of more Syrians if you change your ideology and if you change your way. And that's how he became Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. To deny that there's foul play from, like, forget Israel, because I can't really, like, me personally, and I hate Jolani a lot. Even I cannot prove that Israel had a role in it. However, we have proof that Turkey had a role in it. We have proof that the US and the UK, all of them had a big role in it, just not specifically Israel. So one of the groups that were funded, so Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is about 6-7 smaller groups. منهم
Volume went much lower.
What is it, sorry?
Your volume, like, is...
Wait, can you hear me now, or...?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so one of them is, for example, Kitab Nuruddin Zinki. Nuruddin Zinki is a very, like, famous brigade. It was funded by the CIA, like, very transparent during their operation funding rebels in Syria. Yeah. And the CIA cut them off because the amount of war crimes that they committed.
Yeah.
Another group is the RCA, the Revolutionary Commando Army, which was prepared with direct collaboration with the Americans and the UK. And there's a very good report about it. The main foul play, I wouldn't even say comes from the US and UK. I would say comes from Turkey. Turkey is the biggest backer behind Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Okay. What do you mean when you say foul play? Be more specific.
Sure. So when I say foul play, I don't believe that Turkey has good intentions in Syria. One, we can look at the treatment that they're giving both Iraq and Syria in terms of downriver, like, water flow, in which they're building hundreds of dams and cutting off the vital points.
And the way that they, you know, since the day that they took Hatay or whatever, Iskandarun, you know.
Yeah, exactly. They've kept it. They occupy parts in the north. Their main interest in Syria is having a regime that is in collaboration with them, even though they had that to an extent with Bashar. Bashar wasn't willing to do away with the SDF in the east. He wasn't willing to fight.
And the thing is, though, that we shouldn't always analyze the relationship between Syria and Turkey as coercive, because we naturally, there's just a lot of things in common with Syria and Turkey. So, like, you know, I think in the past there was, like, pan-Arabism or whatever that made us kind of anti-Ottoman. But now, like, I think that's kind of, you know, in modern...
It is coercive now. It's coercive. Right? It's coercive. So you look at Turkey's intention.
Like, I mean, 100%. It's not, like, overtly coercive. Like, I think, you know, we definitely have a lot of interest in having good ties with them and having good ties with Qatar and having.
But why do they want to have good ties with you? Do they care about the Syrian people and the state of the Syrian people?
No, okay. But, like, that's like realism, you know.
What do they care about? They care about, one, having a government that's not going to confront them, which they have. They've captured that with Jolani. We see the head of Turkish intelligence driving around in
Yeah,
Damascus
call
with, yeah, in a Mercedes. I don't know if you've been in that market. I'm sorry, I was there like last year, right? Now we were walking, we could barely walk. I don't know how they fit a whole Mercedes in there, but whatever. So there's that, and there's also the threat of the Kurds in the east, the SDF, Quwat Qasad, right?
Yeah.
So for Turkey, that's the biggest threat.
Are you Kurdish by any chance?
No, hell no. Ew, no, I'm Palestinian.
Oh, well, you don't say ew, but like, yeah, you speak like Arabic and
Yeah,
you read it and everything?
بحكي عربي عادي.
And you read it and everything?
Yeah, fully. I'm fluent. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, because yeah, when you're talking about like the relationship with Jolani and all these other previous leaders, like this is accumulated from various sources, or or do you get like different, or do you get like
I
from
get them from everywhere. Yeah. So yeah, I'll tell you one of the main points of like contention and research historically. One, and I'll tell you about like my background. So my mother's side, they lived in Syria. So my mother's side, even until now, we have a bunch of family in Syria. So she was in Dummar and Sadnaya, both like Rif Dimashq, and we had some family in Yarmouk. In Yarmouk, the second offensive and the first one and the third one, every single time Al-Nusra was in control of the camp. And, while Bashar and his criminal army was besieging the camp and they were cutting off food sources, Al-Nusra was conducting its own sort of bullshit on the inside. So, for example, we have family members that were arrested and were beaten and abused by Al-Nusra because they chose to steal flour. The UN at a time, if you guys remember, there was a blockade, and like there was just like a siege of Yarmouk, right? There was nothing allowed in, nothing allowed out. And the UN like practically like begged everyone to allow flour in, and they were allowed to. Bashar allowed them to. The second that flour came in, Al-Nusra stole it all. And when people in the predominantly Palestinian camps started trying to steal some of the flour, they instituted laws in which they would literally cut the hands of the people who stole. They beheaded people in Al-Nusra. Like Al-Nusra beheaded people like Palestinians, Syrians. Al-Nusra was probably one of the most destructive things to the Syrian Revolution. Even between like the opposition factions, Al-Nusra fought Jaysh al-Hur. Al-Nusra fought other parts.
Yeah, their consolidation of Idlib was all done through blood, through Syrian
100%.
blood, like by completely decimating like any rebel opposition groups. They developed like into HTS by consolidating and
even Jolani, within his own people, the people who disagreed with his approach, the more radical ones who were not willing to change any of their ideology, he literally killed them. His own people, who he worked with for a decade plus, he had no issue killing them.
But
That's
the sources like from. Can you name like a?
Yeah. So the SOHR, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, it's probably the most reputable source on Syria. Period.
Okay, what else?
The Syrian Human Rights Committee, I believe. I'll hold on. I'll give you it. Give me 1 sec.
Okay. بس بالعربي يعني في مجال ثاني.
Oh yeah, المرصد السوري لحقوق الإنسان. Yeah. SOHR is مرصد السوري لحقوق الإنسان.
Okay.
It is like observatory, even though by the way, it's not the perfect one, but it's the most.
Yeah, the leader has had a few controversies, I think.
Yeah, I think they had an issue at some point with like misreporting on the chemical attacks, and they also misreported on the white helmets. But at the same time, also misreported on like a lot of like tragedies. But as far as Syrian documentation goes and casualty documentation goes, it is the most accurate.
I mean, I think it's not necessarily the most accurate, but it's the most like constant. Like it's always it updates on everything.
So when I say accurate, I mean with regards to the death toll that we have in Syria, they're the ones who established it. The figures and the breakdown, they're the ones.
Are you sure you're not confusing them with SNHR? Because like SNHR, they take their time. They document stuff and then they find like the name of the person. They try to contact families if possible. I think SOHR just like goes off of like they have people on the ground, but they just like estimate and then they just say it right away. I feel like it's
both of them are like reliable. I think
I'm not saying that SOHR isn't always reliable, but I'm saying like I think SOHR focuses more on quantity over quality because,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, they put out daily
That
news,
has many,
whereas
yeah, it tends to
SNHR,
account for most deaths, while SNHR goes into specifics. So, for example, their death toll on torture, their death toll on, say, like starvation, their death toll on arrest,
yeah.
all of
Like,
these
they'll do a
things.
full report every month, and then they'll do a quarterly report, and they'll do an annual report.
Yeah,
SOHR is like every day they're putting out different news of different incidents.
exactly. Yeah, and this is what I'm quoting. So when I quote SOHR,
Okay.
I'm referring to specifically the research and the reports about, like, for example, specific groups. Even like SNHR, by the way, you can use both for specifically
Yeah.
like different groups.
I haven't
Both of
seen
them
them.
have different
I haven't
groups.
seen them talking about like I see them reporting on crimes from Nusra or from HTS, but I haven't seen them like reporting on the history of the relationship between Jolani and all these other groups.
No, they won't.
Reporting on
No,
crimes.
it's just like akhbar. Yeah, it's just
That was
akhbar.
just like a collection of news that you've accumulated, Yani?
Yeah. So you go, yeah. So on both of their websites, they have like violations and crimes and breakdown.
Yeah. No, but no, not about that. I'm talking about the history of the relationship of Jolani with all these people.
There's a few sources. If you give me like 2 seconds, I can get you like the specific ones. But
Yeah. Like you know, Zaman al-Wasl?
Zaman was who?
Zaman Wasl, yeah.
I can't hear you. What?
Zaman Wasl.
No.
Okay, do you know like Anab Baladi?
No. Are these like Telegram groups?
No, these are actual like publications. But yeah,
No,
I know
not
most people
familiar
get
with
like
that.
their news from Telegram now. It's crazy. Like you just like it's just a bunch of Telegram groups, and then people repost it on Twitter,
Yeah,
and
I
then
hate
people
that.
repost that Twitter shit. Like it's the worst human centipede. You know, like shit goes into shit goes into shit.
This is the same thing. Like the same issue we have in Palestine also is that it's like our news is literally just like telegrams at this point, and like
Yeah.
anyone can say whatever, and it literally catches like wildfire, and I hate that.
And CNN, like it's all CNN's fault. It's also MSNBC's fault. Like they suck at doing their job, so that everyone's just like, oh, I trust like.
Yeah, and
Twitter.
don't forget that there was like a systematic effort at like like taking out reliable journalists and like opposition media in Syria, right? Yeah. So even on both
Also,
sides.
no, just like the way that they're such liars on Israel and like how they frame the conflict in Israel Palestine made them seem so unreliable now. Like when we're trying to report on real conflicts in Syria.
Exactly. Did you see Clarissa أبصر شو كان اسمها and
Bro. Yeah, they're still embarrassing themselves like so blatantly. It's crazy.
Yeah, like it's like confusing, right? هلا أنا like I'll give you background, right? Like once again, a bit more background. I know we had a family member that like disappeared since أيام مخيم اليرموك, and they popped out in Sadnaya, right? But at the same time, I look at it like CNN. I know they always have the worst like, intentions. Always. CNN always has the worst intentions.
Yeah.
What are the intentions of CNN now in trying to whitewash Jolani and portraying him as this moderate rebel? What are their intentions of like trying to paint over all this history of this man?
They're not necessarily whitewashing, in my opinion. I think it's literally like there's a conspiracy side of me that thinks there's a narrative being created, there's a plan being put in motion. But no, like the rational side of me, like the Occam's razor, like the
the simplest explanation. Yeah.
Occam's razor.
Yeah, it's the simplest explanation.
Exactly. Yeah. Usually, like my simplest explanation is like CNN is the most hyper consumer capitalist like channel that just seeks profit and dramatization and going viral and stuff like that. So they focus more on the drama. They don't care about.
Also, it's not just like CNN, right? When we see like a push by all these countries worldwide to, for example, normalize relations with this new government, and Jolani being taken off the.
Okay, but let's be honest. We didn't see it in Afghanistan because like the Taliban didn't actually try to normalize. They just completely went on repressing.
No, the Taliban did. Actually, the Taliban did. The Taliban reached out through Pakistan. Pakistan shut them out. The Taliban.
I'm talking about like when like the reason that they didn't normalize with Taliban is because like they actually didn't try. Like people saying they're whitewashing them. Jolani's also changed himself. Like
this is what I disagree with. I don't. This is what I disagree with. Right. I don't believe you can like reform certain characters.
Yeah. I am not defending him in any way.
I get what you mean, but like he didn't.
I trust him. I don't trust him at all. Like, but I'm saying like the idea that the media is whitewashing him. Like they're presenting what they're
But
being
it is.
told.
I'm sorry. They're going off his real name, Ahmed Sharaf, forgetting the fact that for most of his life and most of his activism and most of his work in these countries, he had the name Jolani. And when
Yeah,
you refer to his birth name, Ahmed Shah, and you ignore that chapter of its history, like it's kind of like it's a bit disingenuous because you know that there's like results of that. You know that people will not like relate him to Jolani anymore.
yeah,
They're gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, oh, look at this
That's
guy.
why I've been trying to I want Shara to become mainstream so that I can feel like comfortable saying Shara and people know who I'm talking about. But right now he's like kind of in the mainstream. He's known as Jolani, so
Yeah,
I have
exactly,
to.
because he had like the 3 decades of terrorism linked to that name. So it's yeah, like you cannot separate him from that name.
I think he started in like 2003, right?
Yeah. 2003, he went to Iraq. Yeah, 2 decades, sorry, not three.
22, yeah.
Yeah. But this is like, yeah, 22 years so far of him being in every
But
single
also, it
discussion.
makes sense to have a nom de guerre when you're a fighter, and then when you're actually a like politician or whatever, you want to have that like you want to take back your legitimacy
But
and use
the
your normal
issue
name.
is this legitimacy that we're talking about. Like, where does HTS derive its legitimacy from? This is like
From
one.
these kinds of moves, that tells people I'm a serious like
Yeah, but
state
now
actor.
they're saying that
Because look
elections are
like
going to take 4 years. Like they're saying
sorry,
that elections are going to take 4 years, right? Ahmed
yeah,
Shah is going to be president, even though he wasn't elected, even though
I know.
HTS, like I'm sorry, even when we look at the offensive, right? The people who captured Damascus weren't HTS. The people who captured Damascus was the southern brigades, right?
No, they actually didn't make it to Damascus until they made it to the outskirts. But apparently, from what I know, the military operation
Yeah,
committee they made it to Damascus. They beat them to Damascus before Jordan or the southern like the people that
are you
started the
sure?
war.
I'm pretty sure the Southern Front was the one who made it to
No,
Damascus first.
but from what I understand, the military operations committee themselves from Idlib had a lot of people from that area go into like they because a lot of like fighters stopped fighting, and so Idlib before they planned this offensive,
Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah. No,
they
I'm
went
like
around the
referring to like
neighborhoods and they're like
no,
in
no.
Idlib, and they said, "Look, are you from
Yeah.
Damascus? Would you go back home if we liberated it?" And like people were like, "Yeah,
I
of
get
course."
that. I'm just saying that the groups in the south they played a pretty big role in this, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
wasn't
like no, I don't deny that at all because at the end of the day, Assad left because he knew it was over. Khalas, he's being
yeah,
stormed on two
exactly.
sides. But no,
Yeah,
I'm just saying that like there was still Southern participation in capturing Damascus
no,
because
but that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like I'm saying, like the south is
listen, because just let me finish this. It's a little long-winded of an explanation. But the rebels that came from Idlib to Damascus, they were people from all over Syria because Idlib became like a mini Syria basically because everyone that was displaced was living there. So when they tried to plan for this offensive, they said, "Would you join us if we tried to plan this offensive?" And so when it came time to go for it, like people from Halab liberated Halab, people from Homs liberated Homs, people from Hama liberated Hama, and people from Damascus liberated Damascus. Like so, it was like literally 1-to-1. Like the
yeah, it was
people that
confirmed.
got displaced went back and liberated that area.
Yeah, so we go off of that, right? So it wasn't just Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. But why is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham the one running the show? Did the Syrian
Why
people work on?
is it or why isn't it?
Why is it? Yeah, you saw
Yeah,
like
because honestly, like I have problems with that too. And bro, he literally appointed his brother to be, I
yeah,
think, like
the
health minister,
head of medical whatever.
and his name is Mahir. Bro, it's like he's spitting in our face.
Yeah, and like I'm sorry, like another issue I have is the new prime minister. Shukran is Mohammed Bashir.
He was a fighter too, right?
Yeah, like the new Saf al-Wuzara, all of them, look up their names, right? Scroll back like 5 years ago. They literally had the classic beard,
Yeah.
beard.
What about
Clearly,
the Shaybani? Shaybani,
who's that? I'm not sure who that is, to
the
be honest.
foreign minister. I think
Oh, I
he
don't
was
know.
in SSG, but not in a fighter group, like like
Ma
Salvation Government.
ma بعرف. But it's like worrying because like the Salvation government, they have a pretty bad record also. They were pretty bad in Idlib. They even fought with
But they're
other.
known as technocrats, like just they're
Yeah.
capable of governance, like basic necessities, things that like were very absent under Assad, like waste collection, 24-hour electricity. This is like infrastructure projects. They actually developed Idlib, even though the human rights record was not the best. and these are basic services that like Syrians are like will
They're
welcome.
missing from Syria, but
And listen, I like
is
my
that now
what
this is
I
how they're
tweeted
going
this
to
earlier.
cement their legacy.
Sorry, go ahead, go
And
ahead.
now you can't get rid of them, right? I mean, this is what I'm trying to explain, right? The fact that they came in, they did good in toppling the regime. They will now temporarily do good in improving the situation. It's going to, for like, long term is the concern, right? Because we know Jolani and we know this gang of goons. We saw in Idlib how they were. Even when democratically people were trying to go speak out against them, they've arrested journalists, killed journalists, put them in like torture chambers and torture prisons that the UN described as bad and as ruthless as what Bashar's prisons were, right? So we go off that. Will they yield power?
Yeah.
And this is the concern. Is there opposition to them? Type. Which of these other groups is capable of, say, being the counterbalance or the counterweight to this ideology or the counterweight to these groups? Which of them? And this is the concern.
I think we could have done a referendum. I think, like, if I was advising Jolani, what I would have done is a referendum. Like, do you want HTS running the transition process, or do you want someone else? And it's just a yes or no thing. Like, in as many cities as you can, just like hand out these ballots and see what people think. And if they say no, then they relinquish power.
No, not really fair either, because one, they are the ones with like accredited what happened, right? We don't know their ability. We don't know any of these things. The only thing that should happen is literally you should have, instead of having to wait 4 years to have elections, the most like that should be done. One is obviously like you have a temporary.
Can you hold that thought? Actually, I have to answer the door. What can you?
No, that's fine.
Sorry, what can I call you, bro?
Just call me Echo, bro.
Okay, you don't want to. You're still hiding like.
Yeah, I'm pulling a Jolani, bro. I have my guerrilla warfare name right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you in Syria?
No. I live abroad, but like I was in Syria like literally like like a year ago. So we went to Rif Dimash.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were holding that thought. Do you remember what you were talking about?
I was saying that who's the counterweight going to be, right? And like having to wait 4 years is ridiculous because they will cement their control. You know,
there's going to be a conference coming up in January, and I'm hoping, like, my hope is that like he's going to hear people out there, and I think he said like we're going to dissolve hopefully HTS at this time, and that's what the expectation is.
But dissolving doesn't really mean anything because they're the ones who run the Salvation government. It's kind of
my hope is it'll be infused with like individuals that come from civil society organizations around Syria, like like the head of the central bank was a woman. The governor of Sueda, another woman from Sueda, like the head of a hospital that was just also a woman. And so I think like these things are not something that the SSG or the HTS would have done without Syrians giving them.
I think they would have. I think the only reason they did this is because they wanted to capture like legitimacy. This is like the most
important. It's not Idlib anymore. Exactly, they need legitimacy, so they need to accommodate for Syrians, and with that will come some.
But only temporarily. Only temporarily, because we've seen this model before, right? We've seen this model in like 3-4 other Arab countries. We saw it in Iraq where people were cheering, a new government came in. At first, they were doing much better than Saddam because they had funds. There was no blockade. There was no limitations. And then what happened? They consolidated control, and people couldn't get rid of them. Same thing in Libya. Same thing even in Lebanon during the Civil War. Same thing in like half a dozen Arab and Muslim countries, right? And I don't think Syria is going to be an exception, mainly because of the players at the ground.
Who was your first example? I'm sorry.
So Iraq, Libya.
Okay.
We could even use Lebanon during the Civil War after like it calmed down. What else?
Sudan is a good example too.
Yeah, Sudan. I'm not too familiar with Sudan, but yeah, Sudan, I guess. Egypt also.
So yeah, so like Sudan is kind of like what we went through. They had a transitional committee, I think, and that's what we're kind of going through right now. And like that's I think the closest that you can compare to our situation. Because I'm also not too familiar with Libya and Iraq, but from what I know, Libya got split up into two, and that's what we're trying to avoid with SDF now. And
but the thing is, SDF is the main player now. Besides,
no, they are not. Inshallah, by the time Trump is in office.
Besides the new Syrian government, they are. There's no one else. They're
yeah. But they're still very weakened too. Like they don't have as broad a mandate than HTS does, because HTS like maybe like the Turkey had a hand in their operations, but I think like they retained a bit more independence than SDF does, because SDF's mission is to combat ISIS, like and maybe like deter Iranian forces from occupying the areas that they're in. They were never given any mandate to rule Syria, to do anything like that. And all of this bullshit about them being Rojava and stuff like that, that was always hanging by a little tiny thread of them on the fact that they were always going to try to keep USA in Syria by playing up the threat of ISIS, If
and هلا Trump, Trump is coming.
Trump, exactly. Hopefully he keeps his word and he abandons them.
And the problem is what's going to happen after. And this is the thing, right?
This is the same fear that we had. What's going to happen after Assad? It's going to be there's the criminals that were actually known in the neighborhoods are going to be like penalized, and then the ones that are like that were just conscripts, like they can just hide their former
conscripts. Did you see how like people are like literally? I'm sorry. Like, have you seen the videos of like people literally just like being beheaded in the streets? Not for
I saw one or two beheading videos, and I like to me I saw like undisciplined people and isolated incidents. I didn't see like a systematic effort to.
There wasn't because there isn't like a system in the first place. That's the point. You're not gonna see
exactly. Most of it was retributive justice, by the way. Like literally, people in those cities
I don't agree, bro.
know this is a criminal, and they went after him. You know, it wasn't always like the rebels doing this.
I saw this one bus driver. He literally got stabbed to death because he had a picture of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah.
Oh shit! Yeah. No, that's unacceptable. Like obviously, and hopefully, like when that is uncovered, like the people in that area will report whoever did that shit, and they will be arrested too, because like same as the Christmas tree, whatever, like the people that did that, hopefully they actually did get arrested, because that's what I heard. Like so yeah, like there's still a form of justice that's going on in every individual neighborhood, because people like talk, people find out stuff. Like you can't just escape accountability, even if the security situation isn't. I'm sorry, but Ma'lula, you have to wait on that, because the situation there is also being propagandized really bad. So like until you see stuff like multiple times.
I know why, but that's what I'm explaining. Like our family's in Sadnaya. Like it's very similar there. Like we've seen that.
I heard there was like also like property seizure and some discrimination events, but like from what I saw, it was being played up more than it's actually real.
It's like obviously going to like obviously like when you have the church published in English, people are gonna pick it up on it, and you're gonna have that white supremacist crowd.
It goes viral, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
more like that Christmas tree got more attention than any of the news about the mass graves that they're uncovering, bro.
This is like, I don't know, but this is like part of like the reason I'm worried, right? It's because we've seen it play out in other things. And one part that also concerns me is the new government's attitude. It seems to me is just going to be another like Sunni Arab like monarchy, or quote unquote democratic state, kind of like Jordan, right? We're going to have another Jordan in Syria. And that's
where I see like Jolani is trying to balance the relationship between the Gulf and Turkey, which I think is a good idea. And he's also hopefully, like, he didn't completely drive Russia out of Syria either. So hopefully he's also trying to balance the USA-Russia relationship.
He did the same, but like one of the main critiques of Hafiz and Bashar is, the whole joke about نحتفظ بحق الرد. And this is what the Syrian government. Yeah, نحتفظ بحق الرد.
Can you translate that?
Yeah, we reserve the right to self-defense.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who said that?
Who? Okay.
Yeah. At a time and place of our choosing.
Yeah, exactly. So when Israel used to strike Syria, and people would ask Bashar about it, he'd be like, "We have the right to self-defense. We just are reserving that right, right?" And this is the same thing I see now. Let me always, as a Palestinian, I'm gonna like view it always in like a sense of Zionism versus not Zionism, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it and I see it. Okay. They're taking the same stances as like every other Gulf regime, right? So one, Jolani and the Minister of Defense said, "Hey, we're going to recognize the 74 ceasefire agreement."
Yeah, I think the thing is like that's a Hafiz Assad agreement, so you can't say that they're doing any less than what Assad was doing.
I know. My standard isn't Assad. This is the.
I know, and that's fine. But you have to have that, like, you have to be able to tell the bad faith argument versus the good faith argument.
I know, but this is where it gets. Hold on, but this is where it gets more, right? But under Bashar, at least there were attacks from Syrian territory. At least there was a supply route to Hezbollah. With what we see now, the new Syrian government, look at the guarantees that they're giving Israel, right? Okay, they're like, no one is even going to have weapons through Syria to anywhere. No one is going to attack you. We're interested in peace. we're interested in respecting the ceasefire agreement.
Who was the second country to ever recognize Israel in the Middle East?
The first one was...
No, second. I said second.
Oh,
I know
the
the
second...
first one, and I'm going to ask that next.
First one is Turkey, second is Egypt.
I thought second is Iran.
Oh, yeah, I don't fucking know. Yeah, first is... I forgot about
First
them.
is Turkey, second is Iran. So
Yeah,
here's
yeah,
the thing.
is Egypt,
We
yeah.
saw for years the axis of resistance and what they've tried to do. Instead of actually ever attacking Israel, they've occupied 4 Arab countries, disseminated a lot of Sunni communities so that they can, bring in their Shia militias under the guise of eventually someday hopefully liberating Jerusalem. I to some extent, like, I will defend all of these groups like the Axis of Resistance from bad faith attacks from Zionists. No problem. But don't ever try to tell me that like the supply line rhetoric or any of that, like Syria never served a purpose in my opinion. Obviously, like, as a Palestinian, you must have like totally and that's totally valid. Like the you might have like different feelings, but like, I think there was no goal achieved that regarding Palestine for like through by Syria being the supply line, and I know that they also were good at this rhetoric of always at least mentioning Palestine, and I've been critical of Jolani of that too. I think he should mention Israel. He should mention Palestine more. I hopefully don't think that he's like going to normalize officially. Like, they might go the Saudi route or the, like, I don't know. Has Jordan? Yeah, Jordan has fully.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, with Arabic. Yeah.
They're fully normalized.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah. But they might take like the Saudi route where it's like kind of low key, and they never do it officially.
They might take the Bashar route. من تحت الطاولة,
Yeah. But no, the Bashar route was like also like, hopefully it's not going to be the Bashar route, because then that's going to be, it's kind of also like the PA route, right? Like they're crushing dissent in Jenin right now too, right?
Yeah, and that's disgusting.
On behalf of Israel.
Yeah, exactly, man. This is where I was going to disagree with you on about like the whole axis of resistance. Like, I disagree with like.
Oh, sorry, and I was getting to a point, and just let me squeeze it in.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
Now that we drove Iran out of Syria, my hope, maybe this isn't what's in store, but my hope is, like, even though Turkey was the first to recognize Israel, it's always still like, if you talk to Israelis, if you watch Israeli media, they never compliment Turkey. They hate Turkey. They're afraid of Turkey, and Turkey, like, government is affiliated with Muslim Brotherhood, just like Hamas is. And so I'm hoping like Syria's liberation can, and Jolani has had a statement where he says, like, I think in 2018 or something, about liberating Jerusalem after Damascus. So I hope that, and I know that
the axis of resistance argument, the road through Jerusalem goes through Sana'a, goes through Baghdad, goes through Damascus, goes through...
No. I don't think that we should be going anywhere in the opposite direction. We should be going to Golan and to Jerusalem. Like, no,
I know, but this is what I'm saying. But like, him saying that is like the same identical like Iranian stuff, man. This is what I was going to disagree with you.
No, but he said Damascus and then Jerusalem. That was...
No. I said no. I named like a few Arab capitals. I said Sana'a, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem.
Oh, Jolani said that?
No. I'm explaining. So you know how like a lot of
quote that I mentioned was him. He said after Damascus.
I get that. I'm just comparing it to what people say about Iran. You know, Iran.
Yeah. And no. And I'm not saying that this meant that he has an intention to liberate Palestine or fight Israel. I'm just saying that, okay, look, we saw Iran, we saw the axis of resistance, we saw what it did. Now let's see what
of resistance. We saw Hezbollah. What Hezbollah did. And, so
and now let's see what a Sunni axis can look like. Maybe one that is, even though I know it's going to give us a lot of whiplash after years of fiery rhetoric from Iranian Ayatollah and all
this clerics and shit. Right? Like, one, the Houthis. As much as I disagree with them, by the way, I disagree with the Houthis a lot, right? But to paint it as Iran sabotaging these Sunni Arab communities with their militias is a bit disingenuous, because Iranian presence in Yemen was reactionary. It was reactionary to Saudi influencing over it and them using it as a base of operations and setting up plans and bases there for Madiq Hormuz, if there is ever an intent for a war to control Madiq Hormuz. So I disagree with that. And then, like, also the destruction that happened in Yemen, even though there was Houthi presence in Yemen, there was Iranian proxy presence there. The destruction was mainly due to Saudi.
The Saudi bombing campaign is is
Yeah,
shameful.
exactly.
Completely
Insane.
shameful.
You destroyed Yemen. Like, take the death toll caused by the Houthis, multiply it by 100, and you might get like the Saudi death toll, right?
Oh, I'd have to look at. I'd have to look. Like, it's best not to compare, but because I already said like no arguments there. It was terrible. It was shameful.
Yeah. Matt, we
And
move
I
on
would
to
never
the other
support that.
countries. In Iraq, I hate Iran's role in Iraq, by the way. Not for the reason you think, is because I
Oh
believe
man, but
believe
no,
it
no.
or-
Listen. I know that it's better. This is their argument: is that it's better than nothing. It's better than what the Sunni Arab countries are doing. But is it though? Like, can you really compare the amount of
They
damage?
did the same thing the Sunni Arab countries did, and this is what I'm trying to say. In Iraq specifically, Ahmadinejad literally came out, the president of Iran at the time, said that why does the US hate us, even though we worked with them in Iraq? They had a direct role in like the occupation and destruction of Iraq. Syria, I don't like Iranian presence there, but it was a proxy war. Every single person and their mother was involved in. The only factor,
Iran first.
not necessarily, no, not necessarily.
Oh no! It's not disputed. Who was the first foreign military in Syria? Hezbollah and Qusay in 2012.
Hold on, this is what I'm getting to. I'm getting to Hezbollah. I like to draw a distinction between Iranian interests and Hezbollah interests because of one point only. One point only, direct confrontation with Israel. Hezbollah is willing to have that. Iran has not necessarily been interested in that. And this is what I draw a distinction based off of. Even when it comes to the axis of resistance, and listen, I tolerate all shit talk for every single person. The only group that I give grace to is Hezbollah. That's the only group in the axis of resistance that I give a lot of grace to. I don't include Hamas within it, but yeah, I'll give them grace too.
In 2006, they could have been. We were all charitable towards them. We were all, bro. Everybody supported them in 2006. They disgraced themselves, and they have earned the right to criticize them and to shame them for what they've done, bro. Every ounce of hate.
I disagree with the role in Syria.
But it goes hand in hand, bro. You can't separate them, man. You cannot just.
No, but you can.
Because no person who kills a Syrian in the morning will liberate Palestine at night.
Man, this is what I'm getting to, right? No person who kills a Syrian, like you said, will liberate Syria and rule over Syria correctly, right? That's Jolani. That's my point. That's Jolani. The guy who, I'm sorry, his own opposition, people who protested against him, massacred them, beheaded, cut hands off people in Mukhayyim al-Yarmouk, did that shit. How can you trust him to rule Syria? I don't care that like he says he's reformed. I don't care that he wants to derive his legitimacy. That same standard that you apply to Hezbollah, you have to apply to them. And even when it comes to Hezbollah, by the way, right?
Hezbollah has gotten worse over time. We supported them in 2006. Now they've only gotten worse.
Hold on. This is what I'm getting to, right? I disagree with their stance in Syria.
Because of the confrontation with Israel. Let me tell you, like, that confrontation is because they share a border with Israel. Inevitably, they're going to clash, and Iran can just safely talk about them while being two countries apart. And the damage that they have caused Lebanon for these attacks, I don't know. Like, I know as a Palestinian, you'll never see it the same way, and I get that, and it's totally valid.
But even though I disagree with Hezbollah's participation in Syria, I still think there should have been some participation merely near the border towns. I disagree with their presence in Halab and Hama, even around Damascus and in Idlib. I disagree with their presence there, right? But I would give them the same standard that I give everyone else. كل حدا بسوريا شنا. Everyone. And this is coming from a Palestinian who I know certain groups in Syria, Palestinian, didn't do very well, right? قيادة عام أحمد جبريل شنع بسوريا. I despise that man from 40 years ago, right? 40 years ago, he massacred PLO people and pledged allegiance to Hafiz, right? But at the same time, that standard I apply to everyone, right? But even going through that, right? Hezbollah, I do believe, should have had a presence near the border towns because the threat was inevitable. Al-Nusra did end up bombing Hezbollah. How many times was Dahi bombed by Nusra? How many times did Syrian infiltrators go and do attacks? I'm not going to deny that Bashar was disgusting. But the problem is that they were tied to him. They couldn't separate themselves. For example, take Amal Movement, right? Who was the second man in, after Hezbollah, after Nasrallah, Allah yarhamu, right? He was the second man in command. He traveled all across the world, right? Where did he end up getting assassinated? In Damascus. 2008, Bashar سلمه. طيب. حتى Hezbollah, for example, how Hafiz al Assad massacred Hezbollah بحرب الإخوة. People kind of forgot that, and this is something that like you see in Arab
What about
politics.
the idea that, like, the fact that literally Hezbollah was infiltrated by Mossad, and that was the way that they even got the coordinates to know where all of the leaders were, and
Through Syria, and this is the problem through Syria.
and through Syria, through their intervention in Syria. Allah, bro, that was the best justice to me when I heard that.
Hold on. You can't say it's the best. Okay, and this is something that I was about to get to. Right, is that the rhetoric? A lot of it is disgusting. So, for example, I saw people.
You just said Allah yarham Nasrallah, man.
Of course I'm going to say Allah yarham, 100%.
Oh my God. So if you're talking about being disgusted, like, I'm just going to make it clear, to me, that was disgusted.
100%, because I know your perspective of him in Syria. And this is what I was about to get to. I disagree with a lot of categorization of what Hezbollah did in Syria. A lot of people attribute things that weren't done to them. A lot of people exaggerate their role. I do believe that they did bad things, like every single other group. But I wouldn't go as far as cursing Nasrallah or saying Allah la yarhamah or comparing him to Israel or saying Allah.
I would never make any public declaration. I would keep that in my heart if that was my actual feelings, man. But making it a public, you're good for you. Standing on business.
A statement like, for example, like drawing an equivalency between both or saying it's poetic justice. It's not the same because the destruction that happened in Lebanon affected people that overall were not involved in Syria. What percent of Hezbollah fighters were in Syria?
No, I never said that the destruction of Lebanon was justice. I think the fact that they were infiltrated through their intervention in Syria.
It wasn't through their intervention in Syria. It was through the fact that their counterparts were infiltrated.
Because they had a million bases in Syria. Like, eventually someone was able to climb up the ranks that was an infiltrator, and that was through Syria.
They got infiltrated because their command, a lot of the communication, a lot of their supplies goes through Syria. And also at the same time, a lot of the coordination goes through Iran.
Both gave the coordinates for where Ismail Haniyeh was.
No one gave coordinates to where Ismail Haniyeh was. They were infiltrated. They were infiltrated within the government. The Iranian government was very much infiltrated. And Ismail Haniyeh...
And this is your axis of resistance. This is what they were able to achieve.
I disagree with them. I don't think they're flawed. I don't think they're perfect, but I also think they're flawed and they're infiltrated.
But this is where like the whole idea of like better than nothing gets you. You become completely oblivious to the idea that like how much have they suppressed of our resistance that we could have been using by now to actually liberate Palestine under the bullshit of every day making speeches and anti-Israel speeches.
Hold on. Hezbollah has been in direct conflict with Israel for decades. For 2 decades in Lebanon, 2006, and now a year and a half long war, as long as Hamas has been.
When they were attacking cell towers, that made you really happy, huh?
The cell towers, really? Like we're repeating like ISIS talking points?
Please. Now it's ISIS propaganda. Come on. 100%, sorry, please debunk it if it's just an ISIS talking point.
Sure. I know you're getting your talking points from like Zumas on Twitter. I know that's what you're doing, but like these points,
I know you're getting your talking points from Hezbollah. Like you're literally defending them.
By the way, you know why it's so funny, Hayan? Zumas, the guy on Twitter, everyone uses his sources. Zumas is literally my best friend. I've known this guy for years, so I can talk shit about him. But
no problem. I never confirmed he's my source, by the way. I've done my own independent research and everything he's ever said. I've been able to check for myself.
Hold on. How many Katyusha attacks were there, and how many attacks on vehicles and drones with all of these things in the first month? Just in the first month, how many shelling attacks on on Israeli jeeps on the border? How many tanks were hit? How many Merkabas?
How many Palestinian lives saved? Let's ask that.
Hold on, you cannot set that as a standard because you cannot save lives when you literally have an army that can wipe out entire countries at once.
How much square inch of land was even won?
You can't set that as a standard because that's number one. If you combine
just rockets being straight, that's the standard, really.
Hold on. Okay, so you cannot.
No matter the direction
for achievements. You cannot set a standard for achievements because one, you know who you're going against. Hezbollah's goal in this war wasn't to liberate all of Palestine, wasn't to liberate Jabal That wasn't their goal. Their goal in this war was to divert attention from Gaza and to open a new front in the north, which could divert attention from Gaza, which was successful for a few months. It took some pressure off of Gaza, but
this is like disagreements on forms of resistance and tactics of resistance, because like this isn't even about Syria anymore. Now it's just purely about like how to fight Israel as a people. I think they dragged Lebanon into a war. Like, yeah, I don't think they saved a single Gazan with what they did. I think they
No, but
honestly just brought Lebanon into a war unnecessarily. And this is why I'm saying, like, I think like the establishment that tried to take power in 2011. Let's be real. Let's call them Muslim Brotherhood. Whatever amalgamation could have come out of 2011, if it wasn't suppressed by Gulf, if it wasn't Discord.
Yeah,
What's going on in Discord?
Your besties are telling you to check your Discord and to not debate me. They're pretty upset.
I see. Okay, whatever. I mean,
it's
yeah,
okay.
I probably want to go eat soon, anyways. Like, I was getting kind of hungry.
But get this point and go look at the Dahiya doctrine. This is their policy of deterrence, right? So people like you think, hey, you know what? This is that we're incapable of fighting Israel because the response is going to be too harsh. If everyone thinks like that, then when is anyone ever going to fight Israel? When? Is it
No
when...
problem. No, and I totally agree. But I think the idea of the axis of resistance has always been more of an idea than an actual resistance, and I think that the Shia Crescent is a more direct threat. Let me finish. The Shia Crescent is a more direct threat to Syria and to Syrians than Israel right now. Like
who's taking more land? Wait, sorry, who's 100 kilometers? How far away are they from Damascus? They've captured territory twice the size of Gaza.
They were in Homs, they were in Hama, they were in Damascus, they were in Latakia. We drove them out. Now Israel is in Golan, which they've always been anyways. They've always been since 1974.
No, they're further than the Golan now. They're further than the Golan now.
They retreated. The UN troops are back.
No, they didn't retreat. What are you talking about, bro?
You just didn't hear about it.
When was that? Sorry, I might have actually not heard about it. When did they retreat?
Yeah, a couple days ago. They retreated because the UN stepped in.
Did they actually? That's good.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't know that, actually. If that's true, I didn't know that. But, like, this is the thing. You keep forgetting that this Iranian influence that you're talking about is a result of Bashar and Hafiz's legacy. But what was the reason Hafiz got into power? How did he get into power? How did other Arab dictators maintain their control over all of these Arab countries, always using the excuse of Israel? Hafiz al-Assad was a propagandist. He used his justification for invading Lebanon. Oh, we're going to fight the Israelis, even though he worked in close coordination with the Israelis. Same thing with Abdel Nasser, right? Same thing with King Abdullah. Same thing with now Abbas. All of these people, their justification was that, hey, Israel. And to ignore that is like not accurate, right? It's a bit silly.
But you're ignoring that with Hezbollah and Iran. Like, they said, oh, Israel. And meanwhile, their body count for Syrians compared to their body count for Israeli is like, like one is up here, one is down there, bro.
Actually, that's not true. No, you don't actually have any even close to a body count by Hezbollah. You don't even have an estimate of a body count by Hezbollah.
Inshallah we will. And when that happens, I'll call you back and we can talk about it. Okay?
Look,
I'm pretty hungry and I'm getting drama. I'm gonna hop off the phone.
Look at the death
Nice talking to you.